Hey, Egyptology students, welcome back to episode 133. Boy, I'm selling myself short there. 133 of Doodling with Purpose as we continue to learn ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. So we're going through the bilateral signs and reviewing not only how to draw them, what they are, but also to really emphasize the sounds they make. It's good to go through this a few times. Hey, ancient Egyptians did it for 9 years. So what you're drawing here in this next glyph is a crocodile tail. So one of the things I love about hieroglyphs is that they're all things that are from ancient Egypt. So this is kum, K-M, kum, with like a hard K, because you notice there's no dot under that K. Pretty easy to draw. You're going to start with the Bart Simpson on the left there with the dash up and down, and then finish your rectangle. It's a fun one to draw. And it's an important one because it's the first letter in probably one of the most important words in ancient Egyptian. And if you're looking at this and recognize all the sounds and that last glyph, you know it's a determinative, and hopefully you remember that the circle with the X is not the symbol for Professor Xavier, but rather a place. This is the word Kemet, K-M-M-T. You're noticing that we have our double M in the middle with a bilateral sound followed by a single sound, and you remember what to do when you see one of those is it's just an echo sound to remind you of the bilateral sound. So you can cross that off. There's no reason to say kum-m-t. There's no repeat. It's just a mental jog. And because, again, determinative for a place, this is the word for Egypt. And you might say, wait a minute, Kemet doesn't say Egypt. Well, no, that's a Greek word. The Egyptians didn't call their land Egypt. They called it Kemet. So this is the word for where they all lived, where the Nile ran, where the pyramids were, where the aliens invaded, all of that stuff. So Kemet, the word for ancient Egypt. And yes, that extra M in there is also to help with the beautification because it now makes a perfect rectangle. If we took out that determinative and didn't have it in there, it would be kind of odd-shaped. And as we talked about in the last few lessons, it was very important with hieroglyphs to make sure everything fit into a square or a rectangle, if you will, so that it could either be elongated, shrunk, based on the amount of space you had to write on your papyrus or your stone wall. If you just wrote with the crocodile tail, KM, and a T, as you can see, it does not make that pretty square/rectangle. So that's why things like determinatives, and if you want to stretch it out, you can add the owl M in the middle there, or if you don't have as much room on your stone wall that you happen to be writing on, you can eliminate it. But the determinative helps as an additional glyph to make it into that perfect square. And that's also why determinatives are added, not just to jog your memory that this is the name of a place, but to help with the beautification of the actual word so that it looks nice and even. Egyptians were really big into that. They wanted all of their letters and all of their words to form perfect squares or rectangles. All right, so another word with the crocodile tail in the front that you may not remember or recognize that last glyph, so it's obviously a determinative, and it's the determinative for hair. So what we're looking at here is the word for black. So you could look at this as black hair, because most Egyptians had black hair. Remember, they were Africans. I don't know why they're always shown as Caucasians in movies. Egypt is part of Africa, people. They were black. And you can add this, obviously, by putting a noun in front of it. So you could have black man, you can have black cat, basically just swapping out the word, or in this case, an ideogram for man, or cat, or let's say, oh, I don't know, do you have a arch enemy out there who doesn't like you, and you could say that person has, oh, I don't know, say a black heart. So simply add the ideogram for heart in front of black, and now you have black heart. So all sorts of ways to use colors, but hair is used as the determinative. And yes, okay, we're not actually spelling out the proper name of a Marvel villain here. We're just trying to use an example. All right, so different ways to use KM. Now we have, continuing along in our K sounds, but more of the Q sound. This is a bricklaying tool, an ancient bricklaying tool. Pretty easy to draw, starting at the top and working your way around. Now, if it doesn't look like a modern bricklaying tool, that's okay, because again, much like we were talking about with the crocodile tail, you can see the gentleman on the right there is actually using this tool. So that little ledge is where you hit the hammer and then sort of bash in into the brick. So that is an ancient bricklaying tool, and with the K with the dot under it, that is the Q sound, like queen. So you're not having a hard K like you had previously with Kemet, or kum, the crocodile tail, but rather a soft K. So it's going to be more like quid, like well, I guess like the British coin, right? Is what you're saying here. So, or like Quidditch or something like that. Well, a lot of British KW sounds. I guess they like that. Maybe they were ancient Egyptian fans. All right, so here's a word with it. So we have the quid, and then followed by a double determinative. You may remember one of them. You remember wall. That is the determinative for a wall. And then you have this guy building the wall. Hence the word to build. Interesting how you have a bricklaying tool followed by a wall, followed by a man. It almost tells a story. See? Not a coincidence. Egyptians love their stories and their puns. All right, next up we have quis. So remember, K with the dot under it is a qu sound, not a k sound. And what you're drawing here is a harpoon. And again, much like the tail and the bricklaying tool, an ancient Egyptian harpoon, not a modern harpoon. Do they still make harpoons? Like, can you go buy a harpoon? Where do you buy a harpoon? I don't know, a whaling store, Moby Dick's? Who knows? Like Dick's Sporting Goods? Moby Dick's harpoon shop? So this is quis, kind of like Q-U-I-S-S. And drawing it, this is actually one of my favorite ones to draw. I love the ones that have sort of the curves to them, the loops. So you're going to go straight down, and then your first curve up, add 2 details on the top, and then your loop to make the final part of the harpoon. So you're spelling out quis. So here it is in a word. And that determinative at the end, remembering it's a determinative and not a sound because you have the 3 stroke lines, which not only makes it a determinative, but this makes it a plural determinative anytime you see 3 strokes. If you have 1 stroke, it makes it a single. But the strokes are used to remind you that it's not a sound, but a determinative. In this case, when you see the W-R-R sound with the ren there, that means it's something bad or small. That's what that determinative means. So working out the whole word, it's kusnt, which means trouble. So hence a determinative for bad or small at the end of this word helps to jog your memory that it is a word for trouble. All right, a shorter version. Here you have quin, the KW followed by N, and again you have a determinative for something bad. All right, moving on to our next word, or letter, excuse me. So here we have a word that looks a lot like the Hebrew lamed. If you were a scholar of different languages, different Semitic languages, it may look very familiar, and it's not a coincidence since, Egypt and Israel are very close to each other, and Hebrew was sort of invented out of ancient Egyptian. And this is the sound ma, like mama, ma. You're going to see this one a lot because a lot of words start with ma, and in fact, there's a lot of words you already know. So this won't be as much of a challenge for those of you who have been in the class for a while. So here we have the word ma'ah, again, one of those rare words where you do have a double single consonant, and this is to see. Another word you've used before is ma'at, and this is also using a double consonant, although different versions of the ah sound. And you recall the determinative for of a papyrus scroll at the end means something that is not tangible. In this case, truth. I mean, how do you draw out truth? It's I guess you could do like maybe a scales or something, but that's kind of a modern thing. So truth with the determinative, and this you might remember from the phrase ma'aharu. I've written a shorter version of it if you don't want to write, less room, so it can be shrunk. So here you have ma'aharu, which means true, truth, and then haru, voice, true of voice, which means the justified, or in ancient Egyptian, that's what they used for like R.I.P., rest in peace. All right, so using some of the words we learned this week and some we've known before, here's your homework. So translate this one. Watch out for those determinatives. Make sure everything is squared away nicely. And we'll come back next week and review the meaning of this because hopefully you've cracked it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I will try to address them all. And as always, thank you so much for joining this class. Let others know about it if you've enjoyed it. It's the best way to show support for this channel. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week for more doodling with purpose.